Hi, this week I'm going to make this entryway bench. This table is 4 feet long, so another person can sit next to you and wear their shoes while you do it. It comes with a storage cabinet at the bottom where you can store your shoes and your shoe care supplies. I stain the side woods and it gives a good contrast to the color scheme. I put a small trim in the front so that when I put a cushion here, it does not move around. So let me show you how I made this. I start by ripping the 18 mm plywood to correct dimensions. Before joining the sides, I prefer to dado the edges. I check if the dado is correct. I measure equal distance and mark the place to pre-drill the holes. Using wood glue, I attach the sides. The 3D printed corner clamp helps to keep the joint square. After I repeat the same steps on the other side, I flip the sides on the top piece. I am going to use 6 mm plywood as backing, so using a scrap I mark the space required. On the top piece I mark with the scrap 18 mm plywood where I have to drill. Then mark and countersink the holes before attaching it with glue and screw. This is how it looks after fixing the top. To put in the center partition I mark equal distance. Then with the scrap I mark where the middle piece will be screwed to. I nudge the board to make it square to the sides. With the square I find the center of the partition plywood and extend it onto the sides. This helps me in correctly drilling into the partition plywood. I flip the bench to attach the 6 mm sheet to the back. The back sheet is what that gives the bench its strength. It stops the sides from swaying when you move the bench around. To make the doors, I ripped some MDF. I made the doors out of 6 mm plywood and decorating it with the MDF. The MDF also gives the necessary thickness for the doors. After pre-drilling and countersinking the holes, I attach the MDF using glue and screw. For the sides, I cut the MDF into smaller length and before attaching, I made sure that it is flush with the plywood. Checking the flushness is very important, otherwise the doors won't fit. Then I drive in the final screws, and that's how the door is made for the bench. To attach the door I use the normal hinges. I first mark the place where I have to carve so that the hinges sit flush with the surface. The flush trim bit helps taking away most of the material. Using a chisel I mark out the edges first. Then by slowly tapping, I remove the rest of the material. If the chisel is sharp, then you can remove wood with just your hand. I can now place the hinge and mark the holes required. I transfer the placement measurements of the hinges to the door. I asked linen to help me with holding the doors. Then I was able to attach the door to the bench. With a little bit of sanding on the sides, the door closed properly. Moving on to create the base, I ripped some plywood. I wanted to create some simple arc design. Leaving 2.5 inches on either side, I draw an arc using the sanding disc. Then I cut out the design using the jigsaw. I repeat the same step for the longer sides now. To attach the base, I used glue and brad nails. It held up everything together really strong. For the back, I did not use any arc design and I attached the sides with some screws. To create the back and the armrest, I cut some pine wood. Then countersunk and attached it to the top with screws. For the armrest, I curved the edges. I used the jigsaw again to cut out the design. I sanded the rough cut using sanding disc. This gave me better control while sanding. The side pieces were also attached using glue and some long screws. And at the corner, both the pieces were attached with more screws. I used laminate on the top and the side to help in easy cleaning. After measuring, I mark along the entire length first. Then I score the sheet until it feels smooth. This is important, only then you will get clean cut. Then using a straight edge, I break the laminate at the score line. I use good amount of spray adhesive to attach the laminate. Using a cloth and pressure, I push out the air bubbles. For the sides, I just repeated the same steps. For the door, I used 3M double-sided tape to stick the laminate. I painted the MDF white to go with my color theme. For the arches and end cuts, I used edge banding. First, I applied good amount of Fevicol Heatex glue and then let it dry for 30 seconds before sticking the edge banding. After drying, I was able to cut away the excess. To hide the end cut near the hinges, I used some wood molding. I attached it with glue and brad nails. On the front edge, I attached a long piece of pine. This will help the cushion from moving when I add one. I rounded off the sharp edges using a small block planer. To attach the hardware to the door, I mark equal distance from both the sides to find the center, then drill the first hole. I repeat the same to drill the second hole. Finally, attach the hardware with screws. To create the shelf, I used MDF. For the edge, I tacked in some pine strips. The shelf just slides in on two rails that I attached with brad nails. This was the only available stain and I am using it for the first time. I am sure there must be better products out there. If you know, please let me know in the comments. I use laminate on the top, front and the side for easy maintenance. After seeing this design, my sister suggested that I could have replaced these doors with sliding doors. On second thoughts, I don't think it's a bad idea because not every time both the doors will be kept open. So sliding doors would have been a better option. Something that you might consider if you're building your own bench. Alternatively, if you're going to build a bench of your own, you can put this next to your window where you can sit in the evening, relax and read book and sip on your coffee. I put these trims on the four sides because my initial idea was to put a cushion here. I'm still going to put the cushion, but I just haven't made it yet. If you're living in a rainy place, then I would suggest you avoid the cushion and just use it as a plain bench. I'm going to store only my shoe polish and supplies here. But if you're planning to store your regular everyday shoes here, then I would suggest that you put some holes at the back so that there is enough ventilation. There's one last suggestion that I would like to make. Instead of using these normal hinges, please use Euro or auto hinges. It would really make your life much better. If you enjoyed this project, please give this video a thumbs up. Somebody out there might want an entryway bench for them. So share this video on your social media so that everybody can watch this video. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments. I'm going to leave you with few of my previous projects before I leave. Please watch them and let me know if any of these videos inspired you to build something of your own. Please follow me on Instagram to know what I'm working on right now and like the Facebook page to see some behind the scene videos. Until next time, happy learning!